life can be confusing. It's hard to know what to do sometimes. There seems to be so much happening in life, so much disorientation. It's hard to find a way forward. And we're not really educated to deal with it. There's nobody who teaches us in life how to handle all the complexity. So, what are we to do about it? Well, you know, it's actually simpler than you might think to organize your life. The basic problem that people have in organizing their life or making sense of things is that there's just, as a human being, we're perceptual beings. And there's so many things going on in life, it's hard to put perspective on things. Another factor in life as well is that, you know, we wake up one day and we're here as a child, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of age, kind of, oh, I'm me. It's not like there was some pre-plan or something. You just have a bunch of kiddie memories, and then cognizance comes, awareness comes as you become a young boy or young girl, and you start having self-awareness. The age of reason dawns around 7 years of age, approximately. And we just get on with things, and we follow our family, and our family has its own culture, its own values, and society has culture and values, and we just roll along with this. And the reality is, let's put it this way. I remember some years ago when I was in college, we had to do a few modules of anthropology. And in anthropology, they talk a lot about culture and the importance of culture and acculturation. That culture allows us to just, plug and play, basically. We just pop into a certain way of doing things. So we don't have to work everything out. That's a great thing of culture. The culture gives you the values, the lifestyle, the approach. So it's generic. You just put on the outfit and off you go, Like a soldier joined the army. He doesn't know everything about being an army soldier, but he puts on the uniform and he's kind of a soldier. And by the end of base training, he is a soldier. He's joined that culture. He doesn't really understand everything about being a soldier. It will take a few years for that soldier to understand everything about to at least have a command of being a soldier. But initially, already within a few weeks, they're there. So culture is like an outfit, a suit that we put on. But the problem, or the negative side effect of culture, is that it's generic. It's not for us. And you are an individual, you see. So you have individual needs, and your family, your religion, your nation, your culture, everything is just generic. And there will always be some conflict. So the real way forward with understanding who you are and where you come from, where you want to go in life, is to understand yourself. And this is the missing link. In education now, there's some awareness that we need self-reflection. But the real tool forward, or the real way forward, is increasing your self-awareness and your orientation. Now, we do have one thing on our side. And what we have on our side is that the tasks that you need to complete in order to feel good about yourself, in order to progress in your life, are not infinite. You only have a certain amount of finite things that you need to do, and every finite thing takes a certain amount of resources, including time, including energy. So it's not like an infinite amount of effort has to go into it. The reason why a lot of people struggle in life is they're trying many different things. Maybe they're trying something that they shouldn't be doing, or maybe they're trying something that they should be doing, then they drop it, and then spend more effort doing something they shouldn't be doing, or they try little things and backwards, forwards. They're lacking a focus in their life, okay? Because they don't know what they really want in the first place. We see this a lot with relationships, for example. People going into intimate relationships and having kids and stuff, and then realizing that the person that they're in a relationship with, they never really should have been married or with them in the first place, and so on. So because they didn't really know who they were. If you ask people of a failed relationship, 9 times out of 10, they will say they didn't really know who they were and they just walked into it. Okay, so how can we orientate ourselves? And there's several little tips I give you. The first tip I would say is to work on yourself. And this is something only you can do. Only you can solve your life problem. You can't get it out of the book. You can do it. And what that means, self-work, is things like therapy, group therapy, psychotherapy, self-help seminars. But don't spend loads of money on self-help seminars. Okay, don't. There's some of them are just there to suck you dry. Things which tend to have like a daily practice, like meditation, regular meetings, all these things I feel are very good, I do a meditation called Heartfulness Meditation, heartfulness.org. You can find it. It's a daily practice. I find it very good. We see self-help groups where you meet on a regular basis can be very good. But if it's just something like, say, a weekend course or something, especially if it's costly, I'd be very questionable about it, because I think a lot of people spend money on courses and then they keep going back and spending money on courses, and they're not going anywhere, because you need to work on yourself over time. So a weekend course can be good, but the basis of self-knowledge can't be just a weekend course. Base of self-knowledge has to be something like a daily practice, like something you do on a regular basis to improve your lot. So, you know, what I'm saying about working on yourself is, just look at the self-help market. I mean, basically, learning about who you are, what you want, what you need, what's the difference between needs and wants, and all of that sort of stuff. So basically, getting used to learning about yourself, working on yourself, watching videos like this and other videos, reading books, articles, and so on, and maybe taking a dip and doing some workshops, courses. If you get into a daily practice like meditation, self-help groups, all these sort of things can be good, especially if it's a daily practice, because your consciousness is basically refreshing itself. I mean, if you remember the old TV screens, they kind of flash a bit because they refresh the screen. Well, we're refreshing the screen of our consciousness every moment of our lives, and so we need to reflect on ourselves. Now, I think a key part of this, the second tip I'd say, is diary writing. Now, I've been sporadic on that. I don't always write a diary, and some people write a diary like it's a big drama, but I'm just talking about learning to reflect upon your life and write about yourself, or tell your life story to yourself. When I was a young man and I had a lot of problems and issues in my life, I used to stand on the landing of our family house. My parents would be downstairs, and I would just pace back and forth and talk out my life issues. I remember some years ago, some student came to me when I was working, and for a project he had to do, some college project, he had to do interviews with people, and he gave a little interview, and I found myself quite emotional at the end of the interview. And the reality is, when you speak your truth, when you talk about what's happening to you, when you get out of your mouth, you'll be surprised what truths are there. So if it's just in our head, I remember when I was very young, my early 20s, I had a lot of issues and problems. It's always in my head, like it's in there somewhere and it couldn't come out. So I think writing is a great way. I think just speaking to yourself. I don't mean like speaking to yourself as a mad person, but speaking to yourself as in having a little self-conversation, making a video, but not necessarily giving it to anybody, making a recording, talking to a friend about it. So some form of diary writing, where it's an actual like video diary, written diary, or whether you're talking to a good friend, or just talking to yourself as a friend of yourself, as it were, getting it out there. Because when you enunciate it, when you get the words out of your mouth or through writing, you'll be surprised what comes out. And it doesn't really matter what comes out. You might think it's all junk, and you might look back at it and think, oh, I really thought that. But it's getting it out of yourself. And in the process of getting it out of yourself, it gives you a different perspective on things. And the perspective makes a lot of sense. So diary writing is very good. And don't be too focused on going back and reading the diary. It's more about getting it out of the system. Life story. All of this is working towards what I like to call the life story. And I honestly believe that without life story, we have no emotional independence. What I mean by that is, I need to find out my life story. You need to find out your life story. Some years ago, I went for counseling and therapy. And I was quite amazed that initially, if you go to counseling therapy, the first few sessions just talking about your life. And after a few sessions, you start to have a life story, because I never thought about it before I went to therapy. But when I started working on myself and I ended up in a situation where I had a life story, I was quite surprised that I never thought about it. But I gained perspectives on my family, and I found out there's family myths, and most families have a family myth. So, for example, my father had a certain perspective on his father, which I would later find out that other relatives have a different viewpoint. That sort of thing. Certain values that my family took for granted, which I didn't necessarily buy into. This is the whole thing of culture. You've been plugged into something, like you're plugged into the matrix. You're plugged into something, and then when you start enunciating your story, learning about yourself, writing about yourself, trying to figure out what you did as a kid and stuff, why you did it, and you start developing your life story. And when you develop your life story, it's your life story. It's nobody else's. And the whole planet, 7.5 billion people, it's your life story. And you start understanding, what do I really believe? What do I really think? What matters? What doesn't matter? versus what I think matters. Because, like I was raised Roman Catholic, for example. So, all that guilt that we're given as Roman Catholics and about nonsense often. So gaining perspectives. And so until you have a life story, you're just a generic human being. And a lot of people are. Whole families are generic. They can't reflect or think about themselves. They have no independent thought or capability of independent thought. This is a certain way of doing. We do things around like this around here. That's the way it is. And that's the way they think. And if you want to do that, fine, but you will never be able to solve the puzzle of life. Unless you're just one of these fortunate people, there are some, who have certain needs and wants, and it just so happens that the lifestyle they fall into is like that. I mean, it's like, for example, when I was a young guy, I noticed like I was having a lot of trouble like with intimate relationships and trying to find somebody in a relationship and so on. And the other people just fell into a relationship, and then they kind of lecture, "Oh, it's very easy, just find a nice girl," and it was easy for them. They just fell into this like very happy relationship, but for a lot of people, it's not so easy. So there are some people who don't have a clue or completely clueless, and yet they fall into a nice lifestyle where they're happy. And good for them. The generic system has worked. But if you're watching this video, more than likely it hasn't worked for you. Okay? So, working yourself, diary writing, life story, very important. And the next two things is reflection and integration. This is the last two steps. You have to reflect. It's not just that there's a lot of people go through endless seminars and training programs, but they never reflect. You've got to reflect. If you want to make orange juice and you got orange juice in a squeezer, you can't just, the orange. You're going anywhere, you're going to get the juice. You have to stick the orange into the juicer and you have to squeeze it to get the juice. With life, you have to get used to squeezing life, reflecting upon life experiences if you want the juice of self-knowledge. And that's what you're looking for today, and that's what you're here for this video today. You want some self-knowledge, okay? You got to reflect. And again, getting back to the idea of saying earlier that life is not infinite. There's only a finite amount of possibilities in your life. There's only a finite amount of time. But also there's only a finite amount of time required to solve your life problems. There's only a finite amount of resources required. It's not infinite, it's finite, okay? And maybe you won't solve everything in life, but you'll solve enough to have a nice life and be a lot happier and a lot more focused than you are now, okay? That's something I can guarantee. So you have to reflect upon life, all right? And integrate it. And how do you integrate? You see, when we do something at first, we're lost, we're confused. Everything is a big ball of confusion. We don't know anything. But if you keep on working at it and working at it and working at it, the stage will eventually come where the clouds clear and you suddenly have clarity. If you've ever been on a plane, you know that's very, very cloudy. And then suddenly, the clouds are gone and the sky is blue. That's clarity. And clarity is there for you. Clarity will come. And that is the clarity I'm talking about is the clarity of being able to make a good decision, to be able to understand that's where I came from, this is who I am, that's where I'm going to, okay? That kind of clarity, and then being able to integrate different aspects of it. Because when you reflect on your life story, you're going to find there's issues, there's hurts that you have, there's questions which seem to be impossible to solve. But over time, if you work through them, I can't say it's true for everything in your life, but you will get through a good bit of it, okay? Early in my life, I studied to become a psychoanalytic psychotherapist. I never actually finished the training, but I learned a lot along the way. And I talked to a few people who had done a full analysis. I did some therapy, I didn't do the whole thing. And I said, how did it finish? How did this therapy finish for you? And they said to me that they came to a point where they felt satisfied. So not that they have all the answers, but they felt satisfied. They came to a point that was good. And in life, you're never going to have all the answers. Everything's not going to be perfect. You might still have some existential questions, doubts, fears. It's going to be there. But I'm talking about being able to understand where you came from, where you're at now, where you need to go to, and being fairly happy with yourself. You can get there through reflecting on your life experience and then integrating it as you work your way through these issues. Because initially these issues are thorny, but after a while, maybe you don't fully understand them, but you understand them enough to solve your particular life problem. So the tips again are working on yourself, diary writing, life story, reflection and integration. And if you work on these very practical, simple things and give it a few years, anywhere from a few months to a few years to make progress, you'll find that you're so much happier and so much more focused in your life. So life is challenging, but you can find a way forward and get to that point whereby you feel fairly satisfied as a mature and independent human being that you're moving in the right direction to fulfill your life and the person that you're meant to be. That's it for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk again next time.